It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the two big movies to kick off the 2005 holiday movie season. Halloween is come and gone on November 4th of 2005, which coincidentally enough, as I'm recording this, we're about 20 minutes away from the start of October. So while we're looking back at after Halloween 2005, we are viewing this ahead of Halloween 2024. Take that for what you will. But we only got two big movies to look at today, and notable for a couple reasons. But we will get to those as we move along here. We'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that was Disney trying to go at it on their own. With Pixar's departure possibly coming in the next couple of months, we have their attempt to try to make it on their own with Chicken Little. Did it work out? So yeah, when Home on the Range was a financial and critical failure, it was kind of part of the final nail of the coffin at the time for Disney's long-running animation department. Home on the Range failing was kind of the equivalent of the Black Cauldron failing back in the 80s, except Home on the Range wasn't beaten by the Care Bears movie. It was just beaten because it was just not a good movie, and people weren't going to see 2D animated movies anymore. And it's the darkest day in Disney history. I mean, that still holds up. I mean, when you're losing to the Care Bears, a big movie like The Black Cauldron should not be losing to the Care Bears, and it did that. And it made Disney wake up back then to get their asses back on track, and so we got that second renaissance. Yeah, Home on the Range was kind of like that for Disney in general. Much like what happened back in the 80s, Disney would eventually make a comeback in the world of animation, but it took a few stumbles to get there. And like I said, in 2005, Disney was not only facing the reality of a dwindling 2D animation film swing, but they were on the cusp of losing one of their biggest acquisitions in Pixar. Because of continuing disagreements with Steve Jobs and then head Michael Eisner, Pixar was really that close to leaving Disney for another studio. And Disney was preparing itself for a future without Pixar as it was trying to save its own animation studio. So that's what this movie was going to be, the ultimate deciding factor of whether or not Disney could make it on their own or if they needed Pixar. And at first, you couldn't really tell, really, when you think about it, because while this was a financial hit, it was not a successful, critically acclaimed film in general. So let's just go ahead and dive into it here. I mean, you have Disney's second adaptation of The Fable, which was actually they actually did it before this with a 1940s cartoon made during World War II. It's actually Disney's first fully computer animated feature, and Dinosaur was a combination of both live action and animation with 2000, but the one thing the movie has going for it, an impressive voice cast. Zach Braff, Joan Cusack, Steve Zahn, Gary Marshall, Wallace Shawn, Don Knotts, Fred Willard, Catherine O'Hara, Amy Sedaris, Patrick Stewart, Patrick Warburton. You also have the director of The Emperor's New Groove, Mark Dindal, who usually is a reliable director, and it seems like they were heading in the right direction. So how does the film actually end up working? Not really well at all. I mean, it's pretty much the story of Chicken Little, where you have Chicken Little, he's lambasted by the town because he thought the sky was falling, and it was simply an acorn falling on him. And he's trying everything he can to become popular, even trying to become a hero on the baseball field, which he does. But then when a piece of the sky literally falls to the ground, he has to decide whether or not to tell people something something was falling from the sky, or what, or just go back to being a pariah again. And it's an interesting concept. It's an interesting idea in general here, but let's talk about all the problems with the movie, because there are a lot of problems here. For one thing, the animation is really clunky in this movie, and shockingly really choppy too. There are so many moments in this movie where the animation looks terrible, and this is Disney. This is not one of their acquiring studios. This isn't the same company that made Vanguard. This isn't Vanguard who made Valiant, that's what I'm trying to say. This isn't the company that made The Wild. No, this is straight up from Disney. And this is really the best they could do here. And second, there's a great voice cast here doing a decent enough job here, but a lot of the choices they make in terms of who they got seem really, really strange. It feels like they got all these names in here because their brand recognition names, and not because they apply solely to the characters they're playing, which is what they used to do with a lot of the movies they made back in the 80s and 90s. I mean, they didn't just grab the genie because of Robin. It's because Robin Williams was just a name recognition. Robin Williams made the genie his own character, and it made him a memorable character in the process. I mean, they didn't just get guys like James Woods to play Hades just to be James Woods. Like, they got him to play a unique personality to them. It's why they got people like Eddie Murphy. It's what from Mulan. It's why they got people like Nathan Lane and Ernie Sabella to play Timon and Pumbaa. They make these characters, all these different voice actors they've had in these movies, they make these characters their own. And that's what makes them so memorable. But here, it just feels like they're just throwing names at the wall, just tell them to be these characters, and then let's move on from there. Third, the comedy and the way they use the references in here are just terrible. I mean, there's way too many references to different pop culture things that don't add anything to the story itself, and it's just there solely on the notion to get people to go like Captain America and the Avengers. I understood that reference. Like, there's references to King Kong, War of the Worlds, South Park, Spice Girls, Indiana Jones, Queen. There's even a reference to Girls Gone Wild in a Disney movie, a Disney animated movie from the canon that also has Beauty and the Beast and Cinderella. Like, I mean, I don't know what went wrong here, but the biggest problem with the movie is that the story is about as lame as predictable as you can get. You can pinpoint every single plot cliche and twist these type of stories have, and there's absolutely no creative spark to anything in this whatsoever. Like, the whole movie is just so... Like, you hate most of these characters here. You especially hate Chicken Little's father, who just turns his back on his son way too many times in this movie. And it's just like, this is one of the worst father-son relationships I've ever seen in an animated movie. There have been some bad ones. If this isn't high up on that list, then I don't know what is, because good lord, the way that the father turns on his son so quickly in this, and how the son just doesn't connect with his dad at all, like, you have to keep remembering that this is Disney. This is Disney's animation department, not an offshoot studio. Disney. That is completely botching this whole thing. And it's just like, even the ending is so sappy and corny and pointless. It's unbearable. Like, it's so bad. Another shitty animated movie that came out 10 years later, Home, did the exact same ending. And that movie was horrible too. And the biggest problem with the film is that it fails because it's not a Disney movie. It fails because this is Disney trying to copy what's popular at the time. And who's their biggest animation competitor in the 2000s? DreamWorks. The whole movie is set up like a DreamWorks movie, and not even a good DreamWorks movie. We're not talking about Shrek or Madagascar or Over the Hedge. We're talking about Shark Tale and Hope levels of copying. I mean, from the voice cast, from the obvious pop culture references, from the music, from the way the animation is portrayed. Like, this is about as blatant of a ripoff of a DreamWorks movie as you can get. And for Disney to do this, that's fucking pathetic, man. Like, there's absolutely no excuse for how bad this movie is. If there's any one positive thing that came out of this movie, it's simply this. Bob Iger took over Disney because of Michael Eisner leaving the company a couple months before this movie came out, which made it much easier for Disney to team up with not only Pixar again, but because Pixar creator John Lasseter got full creative control over the Disney Animation Studios. And we've seen since in the time he took over, that Disney was really putting some of their best stuff together, and it was kind of their third renaissance. I mean, you got great stuff like Bolt, Princess and the Frog, Winnie the Pooh, Frozen, Tangled, just Zootopia. A lot of great movies came from this period when John Lasseter was the head of Disney. And it's really funny because it really began just a couple months earlier, because I've talked about the story before, when Shanghai Disneyland opened up. They were at the opening of that, and Bob Iger, and he realized that the Pixar characters were getting more of an applause from the audiences than the regular classic Disney characters. And because of that, that was the main focus of getting those negotiations back on track. And not but a couple months later, Disney and Pixar came together and said, you know what, let's work together again. And so that's how John Lasseter got creative control over that. He started with Meet the Robinsons, which isn't a bad movie, but it's kind of that little bridge movie before we got to the really good stuff. But we'll delve into that when we get to that one in 2007. But like I said, when John Lasseter was the head of Disney, the films not only got better with better animation, but also have been incredibly successful and have become new classics. I mean, look at the status that films like Frozen, Tangled, Moana, Wreck-It Ralph, Princess and the Frog. Look at what they've done to Disney in the last 10 years. Like, they've created a new batch of classic characters for a new generation. So there's at least a consolation prize for this movie being so terrible, because if it wasn't for Chicken Little, we wouldn't have this right now. John Lasseter would have probably taken Pixar, and Steve Jobs probably would have taken Pixar to somebody else, probably Warner Brothers or somewhere else, but in general. But Chicken Little is just such a lame movie. It lacks the creativity. It lacks the great animation the studio has done. It lacks the humor. It lacks the character development. The heart is not there. It's a complete waste of time with no redeemable qualities to it whatsoever. It's a mess of a film, and the only thing that it was good that came out of it was that Disney and Pixar reconciled, and the rest is history. So you can thank Chicken Little for that, because yeah, Home on the Range may have been the final nail in the coffin, but Chicken Little was the movie that said, we really need Pixar involved in here, because we can't keep doing this to ourselves. And just why of all companies do you want to rip off DreamWorks? You're Disney. You're much better than this. So yeah. Not much more to say about Chicken Little, as I've gone off on now for about 10 minutes on this movie. So let's go ahead and get to a really good movie that came out this weekend, and I mean a really good movie. Sam Mendes, the director of American Beauty, with Jake Gyllenhaal and Jamie Foxx and Chris Cooper, giving us a great war film, and that is, of course, Jarhead. I absolutely love Jarhead. This is probably one of my favorite war movies of all time. Just a really good movie, man. You have a story that's based off of the memoir of the actor, the soldier who Jake Gyllenhaal plays in the movie, Anthony Swarford, and it chronicles his military service in the U.S. Marine Corps during the Persian Gulf War in 1989 and 1991. Also featuring Jamie Foxx, as I said, Peter Skarsgård, Lucius Black, Chris Cooper, Dennis Haysbert's also in here as well. Who else is in here? John Krasinski from The Office is in here too. A lot of good talent in this movie, and this is just such an incredible war film in general. I mean, this is why Sam Mendes is such a great director. He made two great movies before this, with American Beauty and Road to Perdition, and I'm looking at his filmography here. A lot of great movies to his name. I think the worst thing he's ever done was Spectre, and even then, that was bad because the movie just felt like it just felt like they were just trying way too hard to recapture the same magic that Skyfall had. I mean, this is a director who has been so pitch perfect for the most part. He made another great war movie with 1917 that came out 14 years later. This guy has two great war films to his record, and it's really hard not to see why, because the guy has such a beautiful visual feel for this movie in general. This is a movie that has some incredible war visuals and a really good storyline here with a strong cast. Jake Gyllenhaal, I think, really gets a chance to show everybody how great of a leading actor he could be here, because he really is fantastic in the film. Jamie Foxx with a great supporting role in this. This is definitely better than his other movie that he did this year, Stealth. But the story is really good. This is William Boyles Jr. who gave us Castaway, and it does a good job with handling the script. The music by Thomas Newman, the marketing campaign with the great Kanye West song "Jesus Walks," probably the best usage of a Kanye song in a marketing campaign ever. I mean, I don't think anything even comes close. Maybe No One Man Should Have All That Power from Limitless, but other than that, though, this is the crowning achievement. I mean, this is such an incredible movie. One of my favorite war movies of all time. One of the best movies of the year. Just a phenomenal, phenomenal film. I can't recommend this one enough. Definitely seek this one out, Jarhead. And so with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. When we meet next time, we'll take a look at some more new movies, including Jon Favreau's Zathura, which is sort of a sequel, sort of a continuation from Jumanji. But we have the first officially released, wider release of a Weinstein Company movie. Clive Owen and Jennifer Aniston in the thriller Derailed. 50 Cent starring in the controversial Get Rich or Die Trying. Keira Knightley starring in Pride and Prejudice. We also have Sarah Silverman, Jesus is Magic, and B Season. So 6 movies, I believe, in general. Yeah, 6 movies to look at. We'll delve into all those movies on the next episode. But until then, thank you so much for watching. And if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the place on the next page. Check out the previous episode. And also don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and notification button if you want to see when new videos come out, because we post here every day, including new episodes of Time About the Movies every day. So yeah, like, subscribe, notification button. But with all of that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.